This is Chip Maxwell, and you're listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. Nebraska's inheritance tax may finally be changing. Estate planning attorney Colin Kastrick of Kastrick Law joins us to break down the latest proposal, what it means for beneficiaries, and why getting your documents right matters more than ever, especially in blended families.
Once again, back in the studio, we have our resident authority, our estate planning and business attorney, and my good friend, Colin Kastrick. How we doing, bud?
Good. Thanks for having me again.
Hey, I want to jump right into it because I got lots I want to talk to you about this week. So just this past April, we actually had a bill to lower the inheritance tax, potentially move forward out of committee in our state legislature. So can you talk about that? And first, I guess, just give a quick understanding to everybody that we are one of only 6 states that currently still has an inheritance tax, and it's a little bit problematic if you're not an actual relative, right?
Yeah, it's important to know. So, and this is if you're a resident in Nebraska, right? So if your kids don't live here, it doesn't matter. It matters where you live. And so right now, if you die in Nebraska and you leave money to your kids, grandkids, anyone's directly down the line, it's 1%. If you leave it to nieces, nephews, people who are related but not directly, it's 11%. And people who are not related, it's 15%, 15 cents on the dollar.
And for the first category there, the direct relatives, the 1%, you're exempt, for $100,000 now, right? We did improve that a few years back. So you get the first $100,000, and then it's 1% over that per beneficiary, right? Per person receiving if they live in the state. But it's basically 15% over, I think, just $25,000.
$25,000.
$25,000. So that's nothing. Yeah. So basically, that's a pretty big tax for all those folks that are cohabitating, if you will, decided not to get married the second or third time, whatever the case may be, but are living together and say, I'm just going to leave the house to Betty or to John or what have you. But that house would come, in that example, if a $500,000 home, with a pretty big tax bill.
And tax bills due within 1 year, and there's no extension, and it's a 14% late fee.
Ouch.
Yeah, so it's, and it accrues daily. It's just, you got to get it paid.
Okay, so now we're still, this bill still proposes to charge an inheritance tax, but greatly reduce the threshold, and it takes those 2 other categories, not direct relatives, the distant relative and the non-relative, and turns them into one, right?
Yep, at 3%, which would be lovely.
So 1% still for relatives, and then 3% for everybody else.
Yeah, which would be great.
And then is it still the $100,000 exemption or
50 for those?
Okay,
yeah. But still, it's substantially reduced there, which is great if it gets through. So they've been trying to do this for quite a few years, so we'll see what happens. But,
I don't know the exact bill, but I did know because there's going to be some loss of revenue there, right? I think it wasn't much. It was only like $3 million over a 2-year budget, so $1.5 million a year, not a big hole to fill. But I guess the way they were proposing how they would do it is increase marriage licenses, which fewer people are buying these days, and a few other county taxes, right?
Doc tax stamp on real estate deeds. So they're trying to do like more of a consumption type of, you're actually doing the transaction.
We always talk, Chip and I on the show here, it's not fun to watch them just kind of take one tax and smoke and mirrors and put it over here. But I am all for pushing taxes to the consumption side, first of all. So then at least it's a choice. You know about the tax before you make said purchase, et cetera, where so many people don't even understand, live right here in our state, have grown up here in our state their whole life, and then my uncle left me, $300,000 in an IRA. Well, we got some bad news for you. Not only is that taxable federally and state income-wise, you also now have to pay an inheritance tax.
At 15%.
And if they don't have the cash, then they have to take a distribution from the account and pay tax on that, right?
It can be a mess. It can be a mess, and so many people are unaware of it. And a lot of people don't know you have to pay it within that year. And that 14% rate just kills people. Okay,
so now we've been talking about the estate tax. We're one of six states that has the tax, still proposing it, which, again, it's a death tax because you can't complain about it. You're dead. So let's talk about a recent celebrity who unfortunately passed away. Actually, one of my favorite actors. The man has made almost 100 movies. Gene Hackman, right? A Hollywood legend, had been in tons and tons of movies, but died under some... we'll call it strange circumstances, and his significant other, both were found deceased in the home. We still don't know who maybe died first. It's a kind of a little bit of, they didn't think it was foul play, but then they thought maybe it was. But anyway, talk about the importance and the mess that's coming out of his estate and having your documents aligned to what you really want to have happen.
And it's huge, especially they had a second marriage. And it's huge for couples who are married the second time, have different kids have different goals, essentially. And so it's so important that your documents reflect what you want to happen. All these we get to say, hey, if I'm the wife and I die, my stuff goes to my kids. I'm the husband, I die, my stuff goes to my kids, right? But if you say everything goes,
you have a simultaneous death, you can have it in there where, okay, my will takes care of my assets, her will takes care of her assets, et cetera.
Exactly. But you want to make sure that's in there, because a lot of people will just say, hey, it goes to my kids, and you'll say it goes to my kids. And so then if everything goes to spouse gets it, they can redirect those assets. And that's a problem as well. And so you just want to make sure that your documents work with each other. And it sounds like here they didn't. They had different goals, and the attorneys didn't draft things correctly to make sure that if they died simultaneously, where does stuff go? So it's a winner-take-all situation.
Guess what's going to happen? These attorneys are now going to file petition after petition to the court, drag this out, and they can take this 2-3 years to settle. And that estate, which I'm sure has some decent value to it, Gene Hackman, I'm sure million. Had some pretty good royalties. Yeah, so $80 million estate, probably going to end up spending down over $10 million of that in legal fees.
Oh yeah, incredibly. And then the other thing you see this is we talk about this on the show all the time. They had trusts, and the trusts weren't funded, so they're going to have to go through probate court. And so the point of the trust is to avoid probate, or one of the points of it. And
spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 creating these wonderful instruments, these trusts that will lay all the framework. And then if you never fund them, it was just a waste of time and energy.
Yeah, it's just a mess. But we see it so often. I'm not sure what the fix is other than just pushing your attorney to do it, trying to get them to help you.
Well, I mean, I talk about it all the time. One of the things that I like about, we've referred you so many clients over the years, is you guarantee the trust will be funded within a time period, basically. And I remember coming home one day telling my wife, because in fact, you and I were talking about, we got to re-update again, right?
Yeah,
and every couple of years, I have to re-update as things change, assets grow, my kids are getting older, et cetera. But my house, lo and behold, is in, I think my wife's trust. I've got a few of them. But,
I'm married. I know where it's at. Yeah.
And you know where my assets are. I don't know sometimes. So, but it's so important that you work with someone who understands the importance of exactly funding the trust. And then even though you actually are on the same floor in the same office space with us for many of the clients we share, you literally send us a legal document directing us to change beneficiaries, et cetera, once you've updated someone's estate plan. That is critical. How often do you think someone should be reviewing these documents at this day and age? Because legislation, I've lived in Nebraska 8 years, and we've had like 5 major changes in legislation on inheritance tax a couple of times, on tax rates, and some Fed changes coming.
Oh, yeah. I say every at least 5 years. Another big problem that you have with Gene Hackman's is they didn't have a successor named. So it basically said if both of us die together, who's in charge? It didn't list anybody. And so that's another big thing I tell people, make sure everyone's alive in those documents you have listed. And if they're not, get in there and fix it.
Well, I mean, this reminds me of Prince dying, a few years back, and the estate took multiple years, and some of it's still not settled.
Yeah, and he was in Minnesota, I believe, which has its own state death tax.
Oh, geez.
And so it's just trying to plan for taxes.
So you can learn about these things and so much more at the tax and estate planning class that you and Mike Schutte put on. That is coming up May 13th or May 15th. You can come to either one of those. 6:30 p.m. at the Midwest Learning Center. You just want to go to retiresmartnow.com and click on the attend an event page to get registered. So in the couple of minutes I've got left with you, Colin, I also want to flip the script. We recently held our first proactive tax and exit planning for business owners. And this was held with Mike Schutte, who's got a myriad of letters behind his name, et cetera, including SEPA, IMA, SEPA, and Evan, CPA, and SEPA. You're actually getting your SEPA designation. But let's just talk about, for a few minutes, on business owners that need to do this type of planning for the business exit. Whether they don't, 20 years out, it doesn't matter. You got to start planning for these things now. And so we talk about proactive tax planning. I just like to talk about the angle of attack that we do, because we sit in a conference room together. We have Evan, a CPA, who's looking at from the CPA's point of view. I'm looking at it as the entrepreneur and the business owner, have started and sold multiple businesses. You're looking at it from the attorney's point of view, and then Mike Schutte is looking at it from the financial advisor's point of view, understanding the liquidity necessary, income needs, et cetera. Can you just talk about how we are able to attack that? I mean, you and I have worked through multiple business sales for clients over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it has to be a team. You got to check your ego at the door, right? And everyone's got their strengths, and we sit down and try to figure out how we can best serve that client. They said there's different ways to look at it, but the biggest thing is looking at one, taxation. How are we going to save taxes for that client? And two, if you've got a business you own with someone else, I mean, it's easy when you own the whole business yourself, right? We're just looking at tax planning for the most part. When we're looking at multiple owners, though, we're trying to make sure that, you said proactively, there's a plan in place that if one of them dies, where does that go? Not only from a tax perspective, but just from an ease of continuing the business. And so we look at not only selling the business, but if we're going to sell it 20 years down the road, how do we have this set up if something happens before that exit period? And so, like I said, Evan will come in with the taxes. He'll tell me, hey, this is what I think we should for taxes.
I always tell people there's only 5 ways you can get rid of the business, right? Death, divorce, disability. You sell it or you will it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or what have you, or you go bankrupt. That's the second one. The will is death. But
bankruptcy.
But I mean, it's a reality. But if you plan properly, we can protect assets. We can preserve, even in the bankruptcy scenario, protect assets for the client. And so proactive planning and having a team that is coordinating this is so important. So anyway, I can't wait for the next round of that class. We don't have that one scheduled yet, so we'll let you know, and we'll have Colin attending that one as well. But if you're an entrepreneur and need this level of planning, I would encourage you to set up a consultation, and we will basically on the intake call kind of direct you. You should talk to Colin first, talk to Evan, the CPA first, or myself or Mike Schutel, et cetera. But overall planning, it's critical that everybody's on the same page, right?
It doesn't matter what stage you are in your business. You got to plan for it. You always plan like something might happen tomorrow.
Yeah, it's so true. So look, we are out of time. This went flying by today. But again, if you want to keep state taxes lower, or inheritance taxes, lower, you should call your legislator, because they are going to be voting on it these coming next 2 weeks. We're out of time. Colin, great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. If you want to learn how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, visit retiresmartpodcast.com. And make sure to subscribe to keep up with new episodes every week. Colin Kastrick and Kastrick Law, LLC are not affiliated with Retire Smart and were not compensated for his appearance or any implied endorsement. However, Kastrick Law is a tenant of, receives referrals from, and shares clients with Retire Smart.